In this video series, you will learn how to make a pattern for a top. A top is simply a garment covering the upper part of the body, usually ending no further than the waist. Here we shall make a short sleeve top with a slit cut into the back neckline and a sweetheart neckline in front. We shall start by making a pattern for the front and back pieces of the top. To make a pattern, you will need a pattern sheet, markers in 3 different colors, a ruler, and a pair of scissors. Take a pattern sheet and spread it flat on the table. Remember that patterns are often cut on fold for symmetry. You therefore need to fold the pattern sheet once along its length so it forms a rectangle with 2 longer sides. If you would like to adapt the garment to your own size, you will need the following measurements. Start making the pattern by marking the following points, so the basic design of the pattern is ready. Mark point B ½ inch below A, which is the top corner along the folded edge. Shift the ruler further along the width of the sheet and mark another point ½ inch from the top edge. Now place the ruler along both the points and mark point D 7 inches from B. Now mark point E 23 inches from B along the folded edge of the pattern sheet. The line BE represents the shoulder to hem length of the top. Mark point F an inch below E to define the hem allowance along the base. Now mark point G 6 inches below D to set the armhole depth. Mark point I 10 inches from the folded edge past G to set the bust line. Shift the ruler towards the base of the pattern. Mark point J 10 inches from E, followed by point K 10 inches from F. Now draw the lines FK and EJ representing the hem allowance line and the hemline respectively. Once this is done, draw the line HI that runs through G. Proceed to draw the line DG. We shall now mark the points defining the necklines, armholes, and the shoulder line. Start by marking point X 2.5 inches from B towards D to define the width of the neckline. Now mark point Y 3.5 inches from B along the folded edge. Y marks the depth of the back neckline. Mark point L 5.5 inches below B to mark the front neck drop. Now mark point M 2 inches from G towards D. Mark a point N 0.3 inch from D to help define a slant in the shoulder line. Draw a line connecting B to D. Now draw a 5.5 inch line down from X to the point O, such that XO is parallel to BL. Draw a line connecting O to L. Shift the ruler further up and draw a line from Y to a point P, parallel to OL. This line will help define the back neckline. Draw a line connecting N to X. You may now draw the arcs representing the front and back necklines. Draw the first arc as shown from X to Y to define the back neckline. Now draw a second arc from X to L to define the front neckline. Note that in order to set the sweetheart design, we have drawn the front neckline wider than the guidelines, with a little slit at the center. We shall now mark the points defining the armhole curves and the rounded end of the hem. Mark point Q half an inch above J and point R half an inch below as shown. Next, define the back armhole by drawing an arc from N to I. Now define the front armhole by drawing a line from I to N, passing through M as shown. Note that the front armhole is wider since we need more flexibility to move our arms towards the front of the body than the back. You may now draw the side seam of the garment. Starting from the armhole, draw a dotted line that slants inwards before turning it back outwards towards the hemline as shown. This curve will give a nice fit to the top. For more precision and clarity, you can now draw a line running through these dots. Once this is done, draw an arc from point Q towards E as shown. Now draw a parallel arc from point R towards F. These two arcs define the rounded ends of the hem. Now mark a point S 2 inches above Q along the side seam. This point will be used to mark a notch that will define the opening of a slit. We shall now shade the allowances for the hem, the side seam, and the armhole of the top. Using a different colored marker, shade the hem allowance as shown. Don't forget to include the curved end. Once this is done, use a third color to mark a series of equally spaced points half an inch outside the side seam and armhole lines. Now connect the points with a dotted line and shade the seam allowance as shown. You may now proceed to cut the pattern along its outline. Start cutting from the folded edge along the hem allowance line. Follow the seam allowance lines all the way past the shoulder and off the edge of the sheet. Now cut along the back neckline arc from Y to X. When this is done, correct the shoulder seam allowance by cutting it parallel to the line XN. To avoid confusion, fold the pattern sheet along the shoulder seam line. Shade the fold using the third color so that all the seam allowances are marked consistently. You may now open the folded pattern and verify its dimensions. You have now learned to make the pattern for the front and back pieces of a top. To learn how to make a pattern for the sleeves, watch the next video.